Do the Arizona Cardinals need to extend Kyler Murray before the start of the 2022 season? What are the lingering positive effects from the 2021 season that truly resonate? And our boy Cam Cox from 12 News here in Phoenix is going to join us in the final segment. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked on Cardinals. Let's go!
You are Locked on Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, giddy up. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked on Cardinals. Follow him at Bob Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you to everybody who subscribes, comments, likes, everything. We really appreciate it. Thank you for making Locked on Cardinals your first listen every day, free and available on all platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, etc. We truly appreciate everybody that's along this ride for us. If you want to leave us a review, cool. If you're not a Baltimore Ravens fan who's scorned, or a Rams fan who's scorned, feel free, leave a review for your favorite podcast. We got a jam-packed show today, Thursday here. Should Kyler Murray be extended before the 2022 season starts? Would put them in salary cap hell-ish, but for unified front purposes, is it necessary? What are some positive things that we remember from the 2021 season that doesn't have to do solely with their final record? Cam Cox from 12 News here in Phoenix, Tegna partner, is going to join us in the third segment. We always have fun when Cammy Boy joins us. So we have a jam-packed show today. I put out on Twitter yesterday, the Arizona Cardinals need to extend Kyler Murray immediately, unified front moving forward. Now, this tweet specifically showed the 50-50 split on Kyler Murray. Like, the dude takes some pictures off this Instagram wall and everybody is out on Kyler Murray. Like, it's the funniest thing. And sure, maybe because we're closer to it, we are inherently thinking, why in sweet mother of anything would you want to, first of all, trade him? And second of all, if you're going to extend him at some point, just do it now. What are you waiting for? Bo, do you agree, disagree, or is the jury still out on if they should specifically extend Kyler Murray before the next season starts?
They don't need to.
Right.
Sure,
I don't it's true. Yeah. They don't need to yet.
They don't need to. But what's going to be important this offseason is catering to Kyler Murray. And a lot of people, they get up in arms about that. They want Kyler Murray to overnight mature into this adult, and make these manly decisions and have these tough conversations and become this leader. Which, look, it's important. It's going to be important when you see the quarterbacks that have led their teams to success. That's a big part of it. Leadership is a huge part of the position. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But Kyler Murray has shown the other intangibles that you want from a franchise quarterback that some people don't even have the chance of having, that aren't gifted with, that Kyler Murray has. Kyler Murray is a slam dunk extension. Like, there's no doubt about it. Alex, getting ahead of it and saying, "Well, let's do it and be this unified front." I don't have an issue with that. If they do that, we're going to have a podcast where we're going to celebrate that. And it was a good move by the Arizona Cardinals, unless, they just completely, they give him like $60 million in a season or something stupid, and they negotiate against themselves because they were scared about what already transpired this offseason. Yeah, I mean, the extension is going to happen. I feel like it's inevitable. The biggest thing is the Arizona Cardinals have to figure out how they can be successful where their teams weren't. Like, even Sean McVay couldn't tutor a quarterback, beyond a certain ceiling, a glass ceiling in Jared Goff. He hit that ceiling and he had to get him out of town post-extension. Carson Wentz was run out of Philly after an extension. There are, horror stories surrounding these quarterbacks on their second deals. Cardinals need to avoid that. And if they don't, Alex, if they don't extend them this offseason, if they try to just play this thing out like Lamar Jackson's doing in Baltimore, or the Ravens are doing in Baltimore, they still have to keep him happy. And the way they do that is that they surround him with the talent, especially on the offensive side of the football, that are going to make him very happy as far as going forward being an Arizona Cardinal, that he's going to be, that they are they're buying in on the Kyler Murray, and they want him to be as successful as possible.
Yeah, and the thing is, the reason why I'm saying extend him early, sure, again, cap hell because it's not. It's a little more of a rudimentary approach, and I don't trust Michael Bidwell and Steve Keim to massage this in the proper way to where at the end of next season that they're going to extend him. Like, I just don't. I feel like if they don't do it sooner, that the conversation is going to be, well, do you franchise tag him or do you give him an extension now? Like, I feel like we've seen enough, and I can't believe I'm saying this, that we've seen enough from Kyler Murray to where he deserves the extension immediately. So if you're going to do it at the end of next season, do it now.
Yeah.
That way, that's one less thing that you have to worry about. You check your boxes. All the free agents know Kyler Murray's going to be here. Like, I understand that there's salary cap ramifications, but let me tell you what, draft better. You have cheaper players and you're able to maneuver around this a little bit.
Well,
okay.
Yeah, that's easier said than done. Why do you keep saying that they'd be in cap hell if they pulled the trigger on an extension now?
Well, there was a certain writer from CardsWire who continues to quote tweet my tweets telling me about the salary cap ramifications for extending him now, where the signing bonus would show up on this year's cap and it would have less money for other players to sign. Okay, there's a lot of free agents that are going to be exiting the Arizona Cardinals. What we saw yesterday, what we talked about yesterday's podcast, was a handful of Rams players. They're going to take up a large chunk of the Rams salary cap for next season. What I saw after we posted that podcast was a tweet about how with restructuring, all of that money would be available.
Right.
So go ahead.
How come they couldn't just pull what the Chiefs did with Mahomes? I mean, Mahomes in 2020, he had a cap hit of just over $5 million.
That was able to sign Chris Jones. That was able to sign Travis Kelce because of that.
And then this past season, he just had a cap hit over just under $7.5 million. This upcoming seasons where things really kind of get dicey as far as the Chiefs and what they're going to have to maneuver around the cap. Why can't the Cardinals not just, I mean, they wouldn't be completely ripping up his rookie deal, but they would be locking in for the future with Kyler Murray. Right.
And I think that point itself is the most important thing for the Cardinals to do this offseason. Yeah. You know, like the argument about, oh, you know what? Well, if you don't do that now with Kyler Murray, you can add more pieces around him. Again, they've got 6 or 7 draft picks. Okay, this doesn't have to be, let's see who's a free agent and who we're going to have to outbid other teams for their services. Kyler Murray is the reason for the success of the Arizona Cardinals. Okay, so you need to lock up the reason why the Arizona Cardinals, at least early on this year, got to 10 wins out of their first 12 weeks. Okay, I don't understand the vitriol. I don't understand the poignant contempt for Kyler Murray after, like, I don't get it. Sure, he's not perfect. Sure, he's got room to grow. Also, give him all the money that he deserves. Alex, Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked on Cardinals. Coming up next, we've talked less positively about the Cardinals, let's say, since after their bye week, okay? Because we take information, we synthesize it, and we give you our opinions as media members covering the Arizona Cardinals. There are some positive things we think that we remember from the 2021 season. We'll discuss those next. Football might be over the season, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the #1 spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all the sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds, right to the Olympic coverage and information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Follow him at Bob Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. Cam Cox from 12 News is going to join us next. The Arizona Cardinals started 7-0. I don't know if you remember this. Started 7-0. They started 10-2. And then they were unable to clinch a playoff spot on their own. So let's call this a roller coaster of what the hell happened from September through January.
Can I just say that they would have clinched a spot on their own if they, I mean, it was already clinched, but they beat Dallas. That would have clinched it if
sure, but did they clinch it on their own?
I guess not at the time. When they clinched, it was because the Vikings lost.
to the Rams. They had a handful of weeks to clinch on their own. They couldn't. Sean McVay had to do it for them. So that's just a true statement. Sure, if we're going to split hairs, whatever. But
I mean, they would have. They would have clinched. But they did.
Cool. Now, if they wouldn't have clinched before playing Dallas, who knows if they would have beat Dallas?
Right.
Okay. So we can say, I mean, are we really going to do this? If my name was Alex, if my name was Bo Brack,
I just want to put
my
all the
signature would be
information
different.
out there. I just want to put all the information out there, and people can buy into which way they want to buy into. That's fine.
My statement is correct, though. They did not clinch a playoff spot on their own.
Okay.
It's just, are we gonna? How many more minutes do we want to talk about this?
I'm agreeing with you.
I'm not used to it, and I just defend myself, because it's human nature. So, a lot of positives to start last year for the first 2/3 of the season, not so much down the stretch. Positives that resonate from last year to this year. What are a couple that come to mind?
The success within the division. The team goes, what do they go? 4-2 in the division. I think that's something that you should be excited about after a couple just brutal years where the Arizona Cardinals just couldn't win games against teams that either it was the Niners in 2018 and they seem to win like split with the Seahawks every other year, but still, I think 4-2 in the NFC West is something to be proud of. As far as I think offensively still, despite the end of the year slump, and you'd be hard pressed to find anybody that finished strong compared to how the team started. But when you look at the team, as far as they were a top 5 team on third down conversions, they were top 5 offense as far as that went. Red zone, they improved. Time of possession, they were the 7th ranked team in the NFL. And those are things that the Cardinals under Cliff Kingsbury had struggled with. So I think that those steps in the right direction. And then, of course, 8th overall pick from 2020, Isaiah Simmons. I think he showed that he has the ability to be a star linebacker in this league. He showed flashes, not enough consistency yet, but you have to be excited from the overall resume of Isaiah Simmons in the 2021 season.
I can appreciate that. Byron Murphy shows that he's a CB1 light. He's not a lockdown corner. Okay, he's not. He showed early. I think that if you can get a running mate for him, we talked about J.C. Jackson is who was the report that had the Cardinals as the best.
It was just the best fit from ESPN.com.
Yeah, ESPN. Okay, yeah. So if you can get him a running mate, then you really have something cooking. I mean, Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson, solidifying their status in the NFL as safety duos. I think the thing that resonates to me the most is the ability within Cliff Kingsbury's offense to highlight a dual threat running back. And we saw that with James Conner. That was the steal of the offseason. That was the Kelvin Beachum signing from a couple of years ago, where it was the money to performance translation. And I mean, James Conner, 1.2, 1.3, what they gave him. We saw that screen game, getting a running back in an open field, works with this offense. And I think that'll help in the draft. I think that'll help with gadget guys like Rondo Moore, potentially, with what we've seen with Deebo Samuel. You need a guy that can run running back routes on pass plays. And it works in this offense. And it worked tried and true. James Conner was the most important offensive player, not named Kyler Murray. Skill position player throughout the entirety of this season. A lot of his touchdowns were inside the 5-yard line, but he got in when Kenyon Drake couldn't. And I think that if the price is right, James Conner is a must re-sign. It's a draft a running back, re-sign James Conner over Chase Edmonds, in my opinion. I know James Conner is a couple years older, but what James Conner can do across the spectrum, he's got a lot more B and B minus grades across the spectrum than Chase Edmonds does. I think Chase Edmonds has a couple A minuses, but the other are behind James Conner in the pecking order.
It's an interesting debate because, there were probably people that were in the corner of bringing back Kenyon Drake because here's a guy that had double-digit touchdowns, and you're like, well, who could do it better? And they found a guy that could do it better, James Conner. And I think that people can still make the argument James Conner's season was spectacular. I mean, what a signing. No doubt about it. Nobody's going to say he wasn't just one of the best signings of the offseason. But there are more complete backs that I think could have pretty comparable success, put in the same positions of James Conner, that where I wouldn't, especially at that position, you could probably find somebody that would be just as good, if not better.
But somebody that doesn't know the system, somebody that isn't already ingrained and ingratiated himself into this organization. Like
Yeah.
he was one of the more loved guys. I mean, cancer survivor. He's an absolute bruiser. And the injury thing, everybody gets injured. All the running backs now get injured. And what we saw from James Conner was when Chase Edmonds was taking some of the load and when they weren't completely relying on him to move the ball down the field, he was fine. And we knew this. We prefaced pretty much every time we talked about James Conner was, unless he starts getting 30 touches a game or 25 touches a game because they need him to produce to move the ball down the field, it's going to work. And he's going to be fine, because what happened in Pittsburgh was he touched the ball 40 times a game. You're going to get injured. He got Arian Foster. He got Christian McCaffrey. He got Derrick Henry.
Well, the biggest problem is he's not an every down back. I mean, that's just what you outlined, and you can't pay him as such either. Like that.
Right.
That's
no, agreed.
Yeah,
agreed. I mean, if you want to bring him back for a 2-year, $10 million with 8 guaranteed, something like that, I'm happily giving him that. And it's for services rendered as much as it is for the future. Like, they get him for $1.5 million, and sure, great, they took a chance. Somebody's going to offer him more money, and he's probably going to go somewhere else, which is unfortunate, because that puts another gaping hole in this offense. The offense isn't supposed to be relied upon a running back. It's not. It's supposed to be Kyler Murray, wide receivers, then running back, or a good 50-50 balance. What we saw this year was it went as James Conner went. And it's not an absolute statement, but it's set up by the run. The offense was set up by the run. And I feel like even though you want to be able to run the ball effectively to churn clock and to keep your offense on the field, it shouldn't be the only institution on offense that's going to be stable in week in and week out. And that's what we saw. At least towards the tail end, that's what we saw. Alex, Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. Cam Cox is going to join us in just a moment from 12 News. So anything else? I mean, I feel like, and I've got to give Cliff some credit here. The first half of the season, the play calling was good. The second half of the season, it wasn't.
Yeah.
And that's not a blanket statement, but once pressure starts to mount, we saw his inability to call plays that would lead to sustained drives. Sure, that's on Kyler. Sure, that's on the players as well. But if you're going to give Cliff Kingsbury credit when things are going well, you need to give him flack for when things are not.
And you hope that with the acquisition of Zach Ertz, that the team finally realizes that they need a playmaking tight end going forward. Like, no longer are they going to ignore this position. No longer are they going to go to Walmart, go to the bargain bin section of DVDs and just try to get those guys and put them, in their main collection. It doesn't make sense. Like, go out there and get, either re-sign Zach Ertz, who had the best tight end season in 10 games since the Arizona Cardinals, or since the Cardinals moved to the desert, or, draft one, or find another guy via free agency or draft or trade,
No, I agreed. I mean, and I think that with Zach Ertz specifically, he was hurt very much by DeAndre Hopkins not being on the field, because his job was supposed to keep the middle of the defense honest when you have your two bookends with AJ Green and DeAndre Hopkins on the outside. Now, I get that the DeAndre Hopkins thing was on the field for the majority of the second half of the season. Understood. It's going to take a step back offensively. The offense didn't look spectacular with him on it. And that's the thing that is kind of something. It was better, obviously. The red zone was great.
30 points a game.
I understand. And we're not going to go back to
it doesn't give them a hall pass for how things finished. They're not exempt because Hop wasn't on the field. But it was a significant blow to that offense.
For sure, it was. But if you look at that if you have that rostered offense without DeAndre Hopkins, there's still 5 or 7 teams in the NFL that would trade it straight up in a heartbeat. So it's not like
I'll take that trade. AJ Green and
Alex, Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. I hope I don't swear. I got 6 minutes. I got 6 minutes with this dude. I hope I don't swear. Alex, Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. Cam Cox is on deck from 12 News. Coming up in just a minute. All right. Final segment, Locked On Cardinals. We did a little positivity today. Positive things are important. We talked about last season positively. We talked about should the Cardinals extend Kyler Murray immediately to show a unified front. Let's bring on a dude who defends the front office of the Arizona Cardinals a little bit more than I do.
Alex, it's not true. I just keep it real.
So Cam, at Cam Cox 12. Let me introduce you. At Cam Cox 12 on Twitter. One of our favorites, man. 12 News here in the desert. Taking the partnership.
Alex, look ready. I'm ready to go.
Where your ties at, man? It's the off season, no ties. So let's just jump in here. There's been a slew of conversations that Bo and I have had since the regular season started, that you and Lena Washington, et cetera, at 12 News have had. Blame pie, let's put that one to the side. Okay. Moving forward, what needs to happen? Who needs to step up the most? Cliff Keim or Kyler Murray to get this ship righted the fastest?
That's an interesting question, because I put the blame on everybody, all three of those guys. And you might say that's a cop-out, but it's the reality of the situation that the Cardinals are in. Bottom line of all this drama with Kyler Murray, he has to step up and grow up and be a better leader. Plain and simple. It's the worst kept secret in Arizona about Kyler's leadership behind the scenes, on the field, with this team. Everybody knows it here. It's just now coming to light nationally, what we've known who cover this team day in and day out for years. Second, Cliff Kingsbury has got to hold him more accountable. I've heard it this week that, people blaming Cliff and the Cardinals for not bringing in a more experienced coach to deal with somebody like Kyler. That's a fair point to bring up. But the reality is they're rolling with Cliff. And so he has got to hold Kyler more accountable in situations that matter in front of the team. The report that he pulled himself out of the game, the final 2 snaps in that playoff game, is unacceptable. Remember Phil Jackson with Scottie Pippen back in the day? Get on the podium and say you find him for doing that. If that story is true, those are, of course, allegations of that Kyler didn't finish the game. But if that story is true, Cliff can't let that fly whatsoever in that locker room. You got to come out and say, we find him, blah, blah, blah. And it's something we're going to ask Cliff moving forward. And then Steve Keim has got to draft better. He's got to surround his team with better personnel. So if anybody has anything more to prove, I don't think it's anybody. I think all three of those guys are crucial in the success of this team next year and moving forward.
It's very political, but I don't disagree with what you said. And I think that's kind of been the theme of our podcast ever since the season ended the way that it did. But yeah, this is an organizationally, there are flaws at every single level, whether it's the decision makers, the play callers, and then the guys out there on the field. Cam Cox, you were out there in Los Angeles. You talked to Zach Ertz. You talked to DeAndre Hopkins. You've been in that locker room throughout the season and seasons before that. What do you make of all this Kyler Murray and all the reports that are coming out of how he conducts himself during halftime and his leadership skills or lack thereof, his maturity level? Where are you with all of this?
It makes my head hurt, to be honest with you. The halftime thing, I got aspirin here. We just need that all season long, right? Give me Advil the size of a hockey puck. The halftime thing, I have a hard time believing it, guys.
Yeah.
I've been in locker rooms before. I couldn't. Today's day and age, people on their phones all the time. Does somebody check Twitter, whatever? Sure. Is it against NFL rules? Yes. I have a hard time imagining, given some of the veterans in that team, if he was making phone calls in the locker room, that somebody wouldn't come over and throw his phone out there to row 7 in State Farm Stadium. So that I'm not sure of. But as far as some of his antics are concerned and being kind of by himself and, a loner sometimes, I can definitely see that. And I've definitely heard from some guys that sometimes that Kyler needs to be a better leader. I think that's very much given. Now, at times on the field, it's something I love to watch when I'm on the field, how players interact with people. I think Kyler took a step this year as far as communicating with guys better, calling people out when things don't go right, going over to the offensive line. Those are things that I have video of on the sideline that they not necessarily show on the big screen and on the national broadcast. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, there are plenty of times where I think Kyler needs to figure out a way to rally the troops better. It's so easy, guys, to follow somebody when they're throwing touchdowns, running around, when they're 7-0. Everybody follows that guy, right? But when things aren't going well, how can he rally the troops? And we just haven't seen that yet out of Kyler Murray. He still has that to prove. As great as he is, phenomenal athlete, one of the best quarterbacks the Cardinals have ever drafted in their history. The numbers say it all. But he has yet to prove if he can be that leader that can get this team to where it needs to go.
Yeah, agreed.
Not that impressive of a list, though. I mean,
yeah, really. I mean,
Rosen,
it's yeah.
Logan
but that's
Thomas.
where we're at. That's where we're at. It's Kyler Murray, Jake Plummer, and then Matt
Yeah.
Leinart way down here.
Yeah, with his ballroom dancing senior year is the only class he took at USC. Cam Cox at Cam Cox 12 on Twitter, joining us here on Locked On Cardinals. Follow him at Bob Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. So 2 things here. One is not football related directly, but this one is. I've been harsh on Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah.
I've been harsh on Steve Keim.
For their so.
Yeah,
so.
for their
offenses, and Steve Keim is draft. Just look at the roster.
Right, but I'm thinking more from a leadership, front office, I wear a suit, you don't perspective kind of thing, where I wear a suit to work and you're an employee. I feel like Kyler's growth in the NFL seems to be done on his own, at least from what I've seen from where we are leadership-wise. I feel like he's kind of being left out to dry. And you're closer day to day than we are. So that's why I'm asking this specifically. Other organizations, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, they blew the roof off what the normal curve was for a young quarterback. But they also went to 2 of the most stable organizations in the NFL. And sure, they're both exemplary in different ways of their craft. I find it hard to believe that all of this is on Kyler and his ecosystem is warm at the same time around him, helping him grow. I feel like he's trying to do it on his own. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I disagree with that because they've given him everything since he started here. They've surrounded him with everything possible to make him to grow. What they haven't surrounded him with is a lot of veteran help to make that happen. You know, up until this past year, we were talking about the Cardinals. They need more veteran leadership. They need more veteran leadership. They were able to get some of that this year. J.J. Watt, Rodney Hudson. Heck, at one point during the year, Rodney Hudson was calling out defenses to Kyler Murray back there in the backfield. So that's helped a little bit. But the difference between like a guy like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, those guys is the situation you put them in, the coaching staff that you put around them. John Harbaugh, I mean, my goodness, been in the league forever. And then you have a guy like Andy Reid, who's been around some of the best quarterbacks of all time, kind of the same thing. But I fully believe that they've given Kyler every opportunity to succeed what they've given them on the football field and off the football field. I don't think Cliff has really tightened the screws on him per se when it comes to limiting what he can do and what he can't do. If Kyler doesn't want to do something, he don't want to be under center, guess what? We're not going to see it. We haven't seen it, right? If Kyler doesn't want the third string quarterback coming in to run some change of pace offense, guess what? We're not going to see it anymore the rest of the year, right? In Chris Trevor. We saw that once. We never saw it again whatsoever. Was that 2 years ago or something like that? This is just the reality. I feel like they've given him a lot of things to succeed. But I think to take the next step, that's on Kyler Murray himself to grow as that leader. But I think Cliff is just as guilty in all of this. This is not just Kyler's fault. It's just starting to come out about Kyler, the person. But where the Cardinals are at right now, it is not just Kyler's fault whatsoever. It's a lot of blame is on Cliff, too, as well. You got to hold your quarterback accountable in certain situations.
Let's look at the statements, one through Pro Football Talk from the Cardinals, kind of backing their quarterback going forward, and then Kyler Murray posts his own statement on his social media accounts. Progress, or are we, still where we were a week ago?
I think we're still where we're at a week ago. I mean, once again, I thought the statement was well timed because I thought some of the stuff was getting out of hand. Stuff at halftime. I mean, I just felt something needed to be said. Heck, we were at the Super Bowl for the entire week. And besides the game and what the halftime show was going to look like, it was right there. Kyler Murray, everybody you saw was asked. Bo, you were there too as well. I mean, everybody you saw had to have an opinion about what was going on with Kyler Murray and his social media. And so I think something had to be said. I wasn't really impressed with the statement. It just left the door open for more to be asked. There's plenty of direct things to ask Kyler Murray, Cliff Kingsbury, and Steve Keim moving forward between now and when we get to training camp in August. I mean, this story is not going away by any means. Kyler can keep being who he is, a great player, but there's still a lot of questions to be answered. But I was glad at the timing of the statement, but I think it left the door wide open for speculation and what this could all look like moving forward.
I mean, yeah, and I think that's like, I don't know. I mean, I kind of took
frustrated. You seem frustrated.
Well, I mean, the thing is, no, and I'm not. I mean, listen, this has been a crap box situation by two entities that aren't good at doing what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like
all around, right? I mean, just inexperience.
Well, on one side, I mean, like I'm sorry that Steve Keim doesn't know how to do his job properly and get out in front of this and get in front of a damn camera. Like I feel like Steve Keim should. Do you know where Steve Keim is? Anybody? Does anybody know where Steve Keim is? I think we're about 6 weeks removed from the Cardinals playing or a month removed from the Cardinals playing a game. We haven't heard from him because things aren't rainbows and butterflies.
In Indy. At least that's coming up.
But I will say this, Alex, that's kind of on par with him being the GM. Like he has a certain times when he talks, and that's just
who cares? Change it.
That's what it is. But not everybody's like a Jerry Jones and who's available after every game. Would I love to talk about Michael Bidwell after every game outside the locker room? Yes. But that's just not what we're seeing. Now, Michael did have a chance. Michael Bidwell did have an opportunity to calm the nerves and defend his quarterback on Monday at the Super Bowl handoff committee press conference, and he did not choose to do that. He did not want to talk. So take that for what it is. Now, Michael has defended his quarterback in the past, but I thought Monday was a big day for this team. Larry Fitzgerald defended his former quarterback. Michael Bidwell did not. Take that for what it is.
Sweet. We got to wrap here. I don't want to get into the Larry Fitzgerald thing, so I don't want to get another argument. But thank you for joining us, Cam Cox, Cam 12 News, dude. We'll do this throughout the offseason. Maybe we'll get you and Lena on at the same time. Lena Washington, you guys do a great job over there. Follow him at Bo Brack.
Was this enough? Kumbaya? Like, are we?
You're lucky we're out of time, sir.
Out of time.
No, we'll do 2 segments next time. But yeah, no, it was definitely because nobody knows. That's the true thing is nobody knows what the hell is going on. So being speculative and kind of taking the little breadcrumbs that they give you, the one thing that I'll leave with is like, just because this is what Steve Keim and Michael Bidwell do and have done forever doesn't make it right by any stretch. It makes it look like the third most losingest franchise in NFL history that hasn't changed at all because Michael Bidwell doesn't know what the hell he's doing and Steve Keim is enabled by somebody that doesn't know what the hell he's doing. That's what it looks like.
And you know what? That's you could say that fans think that. I don't think Michael doesn't know what the hell he's doing. But I will say this organization has a lot of questions to answer, and fans should be skeptical about what's going on right now because we haven't seen that kind of progress over the last 20 years. It's like it's just this vicious cycle that kind of rotates with this franchise. We've seen success, and we've seen them go back in the dumpster. We've seen more success, and we've seen more problems. And given that Cliff and everything that's happened these past 3 years towards the end of the year, there's a lot of skepticism moving forward about what this team can do and this roster and the current state of it. There's not a lot of depth when you look at young guys, and that's on Steve Keim and his drafting. Cliff Kingsbury's committed fireable offenses the past couple of years. Other coaches around the league would get fired for, yet he still has a job. And then there's really serious questions about the leadership of the quarterback you've given everything to. That's where we're at, and fans should be concerned about this team moving forward. I will say this. It's good for business. There must talk about the next 4 or 5 months.
Yeah. Hell yeah, it's good for business. You could have said that exact same thing in 2013. You know, that statement, things haven't changed. Things haven't changed. The head coach has changed. I mean, sure, they've won more games than they've lost. Yeah. They've made an NFC Championship game they probably shouldn't have made because it would have made them look better in the history of the NFL if they didn't lose to Carolina.
Was a really good team.
Yeah.
It was. 1 year. Alex, Clancy, Bo Brack, Cam Cox, Alex and Bo and I will talk to you tomorrow. I need to get a throat lozenge in. You can check Cam Cox all over 12 News every day. One of the best in the business here in Phoenix. Thanks for joining us, Cam. Bo Brack, Alex Clancy. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.